Tom, I just want to welcome you for being a part of our first issue of Extraordinary Men.
Well, thank you very much. I'm flattered to no end, to tell you the truth, because extraordinary is a pretty interesting word, and I got big shoes to fill. So I'll do whatever I can to do that for you today.
You may not know this, but you probably don't, but actually, when I first started speaking on stage when I was in the environmental field, I actually bought your program.
No
And
kidding.
yes, and you were the one that helped me get through the jitters of presenting to large crowds, technical papers, and, being in front of so many people when at heart I was still very, very quiet and very shy. And so I have known of you for a very, very long time, and you have made quite the difference in my life. So I want to thank you for
Thank
that
you.
as well.
I just get tears in my eyes every time I hear a story like that because uh, you overcame your fears and now you're helping lots of people and the environment too. So I'm thrilled about that.
Speaking of helping a lot of people, the magazine is actually designed for women entrepreneurs. And I work with some just really fantastic people, and you probably know quite a few of them. I have worked with Rachel Hanfling, who has spoken at Author
Hmm.
101, where you've been, and also Laura Atchison is a good friend, and
Hmm.
Michelle Manning Kogler. And these are ladies that all really, really have so much to share with others that they can really impact another person's life. But what I find is that they're not quite sure how to market themselves properly. They build websites, they try to start promoting themselves online, but they kind of get lost in the process because they're not sure where to start. And I just respect you so much on your
Thank you.
business, Akim. And would you be able to share a couple of things with us on where you think the ladies that I work with that need and want to be in that so-called expert space, where do they start on the marketing of themselves?
Yeah, this is fairly easy, and I don't know. You probably realize that I'm a nuts and bolts kind of guy. I'm not the big visionary kind of
Mm-hmm.
guy. I'm like, how do you do this? If
And
you
you
want
get
to get
results.
from A to B in a hurry and do it in a quality fashion, how do you do it?
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that people have to do is there are simple tools on the internet called keyword research tools. And this is a way, the biggest mistake that all entrepreneurs online make, virtually all of them, is they don't know the words that people would use to find their product or service. And some of them even go as far as making up words like edutainment. I mean, that was a big years ago, probably when you got my speaker system, that was a
Mm-hmm.
big thing. But nobody on earth is typing such a word. So you are taking your concept that you're in love with and thinking that the rest of the world is going to flock to it. Well, that just doesn't happen, or very very rarely happens. So the first thing, there's a free tool called freekeywords.wordtracker.com that you can go to. Now, I want to warn everybody, don't sign up for the free trial, which leads you to a paid version. Virtually no one needs the paid version right off the bat.
Okay.
Get the free account, which gives you 20 free searches a day on a very accurate tool to let you experiment with some of the terms that you think people would use to find you. And usually people are like, oh my God, something that I thought was great, nobody wants. And they trip on something that is way better than they ever dreamed. So sometimes you have to adjust. See, the internet's not going to adjust to suit you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
You have to adjust to suit what the world is telling you. And if you're too rigid to do that, you have very little chance of success on the web. So keyword research is the number one thing you do before you build a website, before you buy business cards,
Mm-hmm.
anything, to see how to position yourself where a lot of people are already looking for what you do.
Now, keyword research is actually something that I've struggled with. It's like women entrepreneurs or who I'm trying to reach. And when you go and type in, women entrepreneurs, there's not a lot of search volume for that.
No,
And
there
so,
wouldn't be.
yeah, so what are some hints on how to even know where to begin to search for the terms that would work for you?
Very, very simple, Michelle. You have to jump out of your skin and sit down as if you were a person that had a problem or an interest and were searching. Now, if you're sitting at a computer and you're typing in women entrepreneurs, you're looking for other women that are entrepreneurs just to read about them. You're not looking for something to help you. So if I were sitting at the computer and I wanted to start a business, I would be typing how to start a business. And I wouldn't care if it was a male or female, because when they get to your site on how to start a business, if it's all girly or if you've said for women entrepreneurs, well, the men are going to leave or they're going to just stay and see what you got. But they'll self-select once they get there. But a woman sitting down, or a man, or a dog sitting down at the computer is not going to say how to start a business for men. They're going to just type how to start a business. So then when they get to your place, then you make them self-select. All right, I'm a woman, I'm a man, and then you can take them from there. But if you type in women entrepreneur, it's not the person that needs what you're selling.
Good advice. Good advice.
So jump out of your skin.
And besides the keyword research that needs to be done before you even consider building your website, is there a certain structure that you should then use for using those keywords? Should you make the keywords your categories? I've heard so much different advice on this topic. Is there a certain way to structure the websites?
Let me just jump back to tell you why I feel confident in telling you what I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
Is I had excellent training back. I mean, I've been around since the beginning of the commercial internet. Been selling on the web since 1994. And I had good training by a guy named Cheryl T Campbell on search engine positioning. This was a guy who could get all top 10 spaces for himself and his client on keywords. I got good enough to get 4 or 5 back in those days. Now it's much more difficult. But the thing is what people do is they lump everything that they can do on one website. Well, what that does is it makes you look like a jack of all trades to Google. And Google wants to give the people the best possible results to their search. So if they see you as a jack of all trades rather than an expert on a specific thing, they say, why should we give you a high ranking? Now, with the method that I teach using WordPress to create quality websites, I mean, we create world-class websites for less than $100. I have plenty of examples of this. So what you do is you break up, if you are an expert on more than one thing, you break it up on different websites. And I know this is daunting when you've never created one, or a webmaster robbed you for $5,000 to $10,000 and it's a nightmare. But if you can get the knowledge to create inexpensive websites, you have multiple websites, and it could be Michelle talks on leadership and Michelle talks on sales, but it's not all on one site to make you look like a jack of all trades.
Okay. And what do you think about the social media buzz that everybody's talking about now, that they just think, that the social is what Google is going to, value more? And, a lot of people are talking about Google Plus. Do you think that these different social media platforms are worth the time and effort? And if so, where do you think a person should concentrate? Do you think that it should be Google Plus for everybody because they're Google Plus, or do you think you really should go to the platform where your clients really are hanging out?
All right. Well, here's the deal. We just had a discussion. I'm in the middle of a big telesummit and talking with a guy named David Ricklin from selfgrowth.com, one of the largest, the number one self-growth site in the world. And both of us for years have been saying, okay, the social media can be a massive waste of time. So you really need to spend some time learning the business aspects of social media rather than just BSing with your friends and putting up pictures to get you robbed. It's so funny. People say, I'm going on vacation. The whole family's gone. And then
2 days.
Their home is gone when
Yeah.
it's completely wiped out and robbed when they get home. But the thing is Google came out, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago and said, look, if you don't have people talking about you in the social media, we don't trust that you're a great site. If you've got this massive website, and it used to be the big thing was link building, get all kinds of links, and that's still important.
Mm-hmm.
But Google's now said, hey, if you got all these links, somebody's talking about you. And if they're not, we're not going to give you a high ranking because we don't believe your links were legitimate. So you must do this. It's not a factor of whether you should or whether it's a waste of time. It's you must do it, but if you're going to do it, you better darn learn how to do it properly. Now, with regard to Google Plus was the bottom of the heap. Nobody cared a darn about Google Plus. It was the worst one of all with traffic-wise. So Google comes out and says, you know what? You better get on Google Plus because we're going to use that as a ranking factor. So now everybody's, whoa, okay, Google Plus. So the big ones you got to deal with are LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Google Plus and Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only ones because there's hundreds of them out there.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of them has a million little nuances. So if you're going to put any time into any social media, take one at a time and take a real advanced course on it. Because if you just play with it and try to figure it out on your own, God help you. You're just going to waste a lot of time. But for instance, here's something that I announced, I think, over 2 years ago that nobody still knows, hardly anybody knows, is you do not automate to Facebook.
Oh, yes.
You got Hootsuite, and you got these all the blog plugins that'll send everything everywhere, right? Syndication, that's awesome. But you don't do it to Facebook and YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I announced this when all the social media experts were like, what? Well, why? Well, the thing is Facebook demands personal engagement or they will penalize you.
Mm-hmm.
Penalize you means they'll show your postings to less of your friends. Just because you got 1,000 friends doesn't mean that they see everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
So don't automate to Facebook. So these are the kinds of tricks you learn by taking advanced courses from people that hone in on Twitter and hone in on Facebook and the experts on LinkedIn and YouTube, and then you'll get some traction. But if you try to figure it out on your own, you'll burn enormous amounts of time, far more than a course would have cost.
It's funny that you say that because I personally don't like, I just don't like Facebook and all the sharing and everything. But I am on an awful lot of private forums because I do gain value from that. And it's not so much the personal life sharing, just the interaction about, helping your business grow and all of that. And that kind of interaction you can't automate.
Well, exactly. You have to be there in person to do that. And the other thing good about Facebook is Facebook ads are way, way easier than Google AdWords, which used to be easy. I used to spend $5,000-$10,000 a month, and it's just so complicated. I can't even keep up with it. So Facebook ads are very targeted. You can target like your neighbor's house if you want with an ad. So we do use it for that also.
Again, take a course in it, though, so you don't throw
Exactly.
your money away. Yes.
Exactly.
So, always go to the people that have the knowledge. And I would think this is actually something that you would like to talk about, too, because when you are taking courses, and there's a lot of people out there that are teaching these things that really aren't that reputable. And I do know that you are a consumer advocate, and I did get my little email the other day immediately from you when Boston happened, and you were warning everybody about the scams that could be associated with people that have big hearts and want to help. And I just think that what you're doing on our behalf is fantastic. So would you mind talking a little bit about your work with that and some of the hints that you would give people to make sure that whether you are donating money or taking a course, to make sure that you're not throwing your money away?
Well, do you know that, and thanks for bringing this up because I'm very passionate about this, do you know that within 1 hour of the Boston bombings, 100 domains were purchased with the Boston Marathon explosion in it? So how many do you think those are reputable places that have 5013Cs and registered with the state? Right?
Yeah.
So everybody's warning you about this kind of thing because there are just conscienceless people out there. They're known as sociopaths in the medical field that just don't feel. They see opportunity to gain money, and they have no conscience about it. Did you ever hear of the grandparent scam?
No.
Grandparent scam is sweeping the country, where people are calling up grandparents and with a young voice saying, "Hey, grandma, guess who this is?" And so the grandparent gives the name of the grandchild so that they don't even have to research. And then the grandchild supposedly says, "Oh, hey, I got in an accident. Mom and Dad will kill me. Please don't tell them about it. I got a lawyer here, and we need some money. Will you please send me some money?" And so the grandparent frantically sends them money. It's all a scam. And now they're so bold, they're showing up to collect the money at the person's house, actually. So scammers are not even, they're so bold, they're not even hiding behind computers all the time. So then you got the Jamaican lottery scam. I mean, our government is trying to shut down Jamaica because $300 million or something this year in a Jamaican lottery scam. So very, very nasty world out there.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm a positive person. I want to do good things. I don't even want to be doing what I'm doing here with this, but I feel compelled because of these bad people. And there's a lot of them in our industry.
Mm-hmm.
I started out my show called Seminar Scammers because, 20 years on stage, I see all these people just robbing people blind and for big amounts of money with no conscience about it. So currently my current show is called Scam Brigade. You can follow on Twitter, twitter.com/Scam Brigade. And we also have, I told you before we started, the world's first scam sniffing dog. So you can see Rubik's there.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, this next week I'm going to Los Angeles to work on the show. So I'm a freight train when it comes to bad people and stopping them from doing it. But anyway, with charities, look for the big ones that are big and reputable that you've heard of. Any little ones that pop up, you got to be skeptical,
Mm-hmm.
very skeptical. There's one girl recently claimed she had cancer for a couple of years and has been scamming all the businesses for hundreds of thousands of dollars. She was basically a heroin addict, and she had the whole community scammed into thinking she was a cancer person.
Oh.
I mean, it's a nasty world out there. So
It really is.
So protect yourself.
I actually run a nonprofit here in Madison, and it always amazes me when you're involved in the nonprofit world how many really large-hearted people there are,
Mm-hmm.
but also how many people there are that are doing it just because they're ego-based.
Exactly.
And that when I started running this organization, I was shocked by that. I wasn't prepared for all the really, really large egos. And you can almost see some of them doing what they do and being open to some of these scams because they just want to be a part of everything that they see, and they want to get the headlines and everything else. But now, what about people in our industry, in the expert space? How do you feel? I know there's been a lot of effort to really take a stand and be professional and be of good value to people. And do you see the industry cleaning up? Not the ones that used to just put in the little tiny small type that you get charged, that $99 every month. And, if you don't check your credit card, you don't even know you're being charged. And there was so much of that. And do you still see that now?
Unfortunately, it's worse than ever. I wrote an article called The Top 20 Seminar Scams. Now it's up to, I think, 25 different seminar scams. And it's just amazing, the thing. And once I released that article, I started to become a clearinghouse for all the bad people out there. And I have just hundreds and hundreds of complaints. I have 48 major complaints on one person alone that I'm taking to D.C. to show to Congress and the Federal Trade Commission. And I'm taking this guy down one way or the other because he's just robbing people. So it's worse. And then I see all the young people coming up seeing this, and they think, oh, that's the way it should be. So there's loads of them coming into the industry, seeing these other people, say, oh, that's easy money. It's easier than robbing a 7-Eleven. I'll go on stage and rob people for a couple $100,000. So it's actually getting worse. And a long time ago, my friends in D.C., I used to live in D.C., or everybody's a lawyer in D.C., and they work for the Federal Trade Commission, said, Tom, we're starting to target your industry because, we get all of these complaints. And the worst thing is, I was talking to the white collar crime people the other day, and they said only 11% of white collar crime across the board is ever even reported because people are intimidated and embarrassed. And in our industry, it's less because we have some of these people on stage intimidating and threaten to blackball you if you complain about anything. Mm-hmm. So it's nasty, nasty, nasty business, and somebody's got to take a stand. I'm trying to be like Ralph Nader, like they go, stand up against the bad people. Mm-hmm. And they're banding together. There's a thing called the syndicate where they just get together, inflate prices, and promote each other's products like they're the greatest thing that ever happened, and most of them are garbage. We call them frauducts instead of products. So yeah, it's bad, and I'm going to do something about it.
Well, there's many of us out there that really appreciate that. That's for sure. Before we're coming up on our time here, so I know how valuable your time is. Do you have just a couple of extra special words of wisdom for our audience on how they really can make a difference? I guess I'm trying to ask is if there's just one little tidbit of advice with all your vast experience to keep people heading in the right direction.
Yes, and again, it's more nuts and bolts than big visionary stuff. It's you must have something that's saleable. The people that crash and burn fall in love with their ideals and their topics that aren't saleable in the marketplace. So that's the quickest way to the poorhouse. You must, and I say, if you do have these ideals, do something that people really want and get rich, and then do the other for free. All right? But trying to do something that nobody will buy will be a burden on your family, your resources, and your psyche that you failed. And so you have to think correctly in the beginning. Do people want this, or is it just me that's in love with this topic? So that's probably the safest way to make money in any kind of business.
Okay. Well, I thank you very, very much for joining us today, and I wish you the very best. And again, many, many thanks.
My pleasure, and thanks, Rubik's, for not barking at me. All right, good boy.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
Bye-bye.
Okay.